The sharp click of polished litter shows it against the marble stairs of the financial district's tallest building. Alexander Holt, a man who was prisoners cold silence a room, stepped out of his black limousine without glancing at the world around him. He moved with the precision of someone who owned the city, his tailored charcoal suit pressed to perfection, silver cufflinks gleaming faintly under the late afternoon sun. His security detail flanked him as he reviewed numbers on his phone, his face an unreadable mask of discipline and authority. It was another day, another meeting, another transaction worth millions, until a voice from the shadows sliced through the air like a knife. "Sir, your daughter is alive." The words were quiet but heavy, delivered with the kind of certainty that could not be mistaken for a prank. Alexander stopped mid-step. It was as if the sound around him, the horns of taxis, the chatter of pedestrians, the low hum of the city, faded into silence. His head turned sharply toward the south. From the mouth of a narrow alley, half hidden in shadow, stood a boy no older than 14. His skin was deep brown, his hair a tangle of unkempt curls, and his clothes were worn to the threads. His shoes were mismatched, his jacket 2 sizes too big, and yet his eyes, teared, alert, and piercing, held the gaze of a man who had seen too much of the world. Alexander's security stepped forward instinctively, but he raised a hand to stop them. "What did you just say?" he asked, his voice low, dangerous. The boy swallowed but didn't back away. "I said your daughter is alive." His voice wavered slightly, but there was conviction there, the kind that made the words impossible to dismiss. "You're mistaken," Alexander said sharply, almost snapping the words. "My daughter died 3 years ago." He could hear the coldness in his own tone, the automatic shield had built to survive the losses. He had buried her in his heart, locked away every memory that wouldn't destroy him. But the boy didn't flinch. "I saw her yesterday," he said, his eyes never leaving Alexander's. "SH was asking about you. She's in trouble." Alexander's chest tightened. For a fleeting second, he saw her, his Elena, lying in the garden, her blonde hair catching the light, her voice calling him, "Papa," with the innocence only a child could have. The memory hit him like a punch, raw and unlimited. Logic told him this was impossible. The coffin, the funeral, the grief. But there had been Dabetes had buried alongside her, unanswered questions about that day, whispers he ignored because the truth was too unbearable. And now, a ragged boy from the streets had just ripped them open again. Alexander took a step closer. "If you're lying to him," he said quietly, his voice like steel, "you will regret it." The boy met his glare without fear. "I'm not lying. I can take you to her." The city's noise returned in a rush, but Alexander no longer heard it. All he could hear was the pounding of his own heart, a sound he hadn't felt in years. This was either the cruelest deception of his life, or the beginning of a miracle. If you want, I can now expand Scene 2 with the same deep cinematic style so the tension and mystery keep building. Would you like to do that next? The boy's teen from darted ahead, weaving through the flow of pedestrians as Alexander followed, his polished shoes now scuffing against the gritty sidewalk. His 2 security men trailed classily, exchanging worried glances. This wasn't a party were used to taking. The glistening glass towers soon gave way to narrow back streets where cracked pavement and rusting fire escapes replaced marble facades and manicured storefronts. Alexander kept his eyes locked on the boy. He noticed the way he moved, quick but cautious, like someone who had spent his life looking over his shoulder. Every few steps, the boy glanced back, not in fear of Alexander, but as if making sure no one else was following. "Where are you taking him?" Alexander demanded. His voice was firm, but there was a flicker of something else beneath it now, in unison he didn't want to acknowledge. The boy didn't turn around. "Somewhere you've never been," he said simply. They passed an overflowing dumpster, stray cats scattering into the shadows. The air grew heavier with the smell of gasoline and damp concrete. Neon signs flickered faintly above closed storefronts, and somewhere far off, the sound of sirens wailed and then faded. Finally, the boy slaved near a narrow brick building wedged between two abandoned warehouses. The windows on the upper floors were boarded up, but a faint yellow glow leaked from a single cracked pane on the ground level. "This is it," the boy said, his voice dropping lower. Alexander glanced at the building, his instinct telling him this place had no connection to the world he knew. It was a place that whispered of forgotten loves and hidden truths. His security detail moved ahead to check the entrance, but the boy shook his head. "Not traitor, they'll never let you in that way." The boy let them down a side Alisa narrow. Alexander had to turn slightly to avoid brushing against the wet, moss-covered wall. At the far end, behind a stack of discarded wooden crates, was a rusted metal door. The boy knocked twice, paused, then knocked 3 more times in a quick rhythm. A sliding payphone scraped open, revealing a pair of suspicious eyes. There was a brief, tense exchange in a low voice, too quiet for Alexander to catch, and then the door creaked open. Inside, the air was warmer but thick with the smell of old wood and something faintly medicinal. The hallway was dim, lit only by a string of bare bulbs hanging loosely from the ceiling. The boy motioned for Alexander to follow him through the cramped passage, past rooms with doors slightly ajar. Alexander caught glimpses of cots lined up against the walls, children curled under tin blankets, a woman tending to a boy with a bandaged arm. It wasn't a shelter, it wasn't an orphanage, it was something in between, something secret. Finally, they stopped in front of a closed door at the end of the hall. The boy placed his hand on the doorknob but hesitated. His eyes met Alexander's, and for the first time, there was a flicker of doubt, almost as if he wasn't sure Alexander was ready for what was behind it. "She's in here," the boy said quietly. "But you have to be prepared, as he doesn't know you're coming." Alexander's pulse pounded in his ears. His hand twitched at his side, torn between opening that door and walking away forever. Every instinct in him screamed that if he turned that knob, his life would never be the same. And yet, his hand was already reaching for it. Defis. If you want, I can now expand scene 3 so the reveal hits with full emotional impact and cinematic weight. Would you like to continue? Alexander's fingers curled around the cold metal of the doorknob, his heartbeat echoing in his ears like a war drum. For a moment, the world outside that small, dimly lit hallway seemed to disappear. The boy stepped aside, his expression unreadable, as if bracing himself for the billionaire's reaction. With a slow turn, the door creaked open. Warm, golden light spilled into the hallway, along with the faint sound of soft humming. Inside was a modest room, its walls faded, its floor-covered with a worn but clean rug. In the corner sat a young woman on a low bed, her back slightly turned as it gently braided the hair of a little girl sitting in front of her. Alexander froze. The child's head turned slightly at the sound of the door, and he caught his first glimpse, bright, familiar eyes, the same shade of deep green he saw every morning in the mirror. Her face, her delicate chin, the tiny freckle beneath her left eye, it was like looking into a photograph from years ago, one that he thought had been burned away forever. His chest tightened painfully. Emma, the name escaped his lips before he could stop it, a name he hadn't spoken in so many years that it felt foreign and sacred all at once. The young woman looked up sharply. Her protective hand wrapped around the girl's shoulder. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice tense, her body shielding the child. The homeless boy stepped forward, standing between them. "He's the man I told you about," he said quietly. The one was been looking without knowing he was looking. Alexander's knees fell to a car. He took a step inside, then another, his expensive shoes sinking into the worn rug as if grounding him in a reality he still couldn't comprehend. His voice trembled. I thought you were gone. Both of you." The woman's eyes flickered with confusion and something else, pain. "We were told you didn't want us in your life," she said slowly. The boy spoke again, his voice firm now. That is not true. Someone lied to both of you. And I couldn't let it stay that way. Alexander's gaze moved between the woman and the child, his mind racing with years of unanswered questions, memories of desperate searches, and the gnawing emptinesses that had followed him every day. The little girl tilted her head, studying him with curiosity. "Mama," she whispered, "who is he?" Her mother hesitated. Alexander's voice cracked when he answered for her. Your father." The room seemed too still. The girl blinked, her small fingers clutching her mother's dress. Then, slowly, she stood and took a hesitant step forward. Alexander dropped to his knees, his arms opening slightly, not daring to reach for her but hoping she'd close the distance. She did. The moment her tiny arms wrapped around his neck, years of grief shattered inside him, replaced by a warmth so overwhelming it made his vision blur. The woman's eyes filled with tears as she watched, and when the homeless boy's stoic expression softened. For the first time in years, Alexander felt whole. And he knew, without a shred of doubt, that nothing in his vast fortune mattered more than what he had found in that small, dimly lit room. If you want, I can now give you image prompts for all three scenes that can be turned into realistic cinematic visuals for this story. Would you like to prepare them?